You know how people say every antique has a story? Yeah. Well, let me tell you about the one that almost cost me my life. A few months ago, it was one of those perfect weekends. Sunny, breezy, the kind of day that makes you want to explore. I decided to hit up this flea market downtown. The vibe was great. Colorful tents, the smell of roasted nuts in the air, people chatting. I wasn't looking for anything, but then I saw it. This mirror. It was tall and elegant, with an ornate frame that looked hand-carved. The wood had this deep, dark finish, almost black, and the carvings, swirls, flowers, and what looked like faces. I didn't notice that part until later. The vendor? Weird guy. He barely made eye contact. He kept muttering something about how the mirror had a lot of history and to be careful. But I figured he was just trying to make it sound mysterious, so I'd buy it. And hey, it worked. Looking back though, I think he was genuinely relieved to get rid of it. I should have walked away, but I didn't. So, I brought the mirror home, and let me tell you, getting it into my tiny apartment wasn't easy. You'd think I was trying to haul a boulder up a mountain. The thing was heavy, like, I need a personal trainer. And I nearly dropped it on the stairs, which would have been a disaster. I could already picture the scene. Me, sprawled out on the ground, surrounded by shattered glass and a lingering sense of regret. But somehow, I managed to wrestle it into my bedroom. Once it was in place, wow, it transformed the space. It stood right across from my bed, catching the light just right. The way the afternoon sun streamed through my window, it almost felt like the mirror was alive, reflecting not just my room, but the very essence of my existence. I could see my messy bedspread, the pile of laundry in the corner, and my mismatched furniture. All of it framed perfectly by this stunning piece of glass. That evening, I was lounging on my bed, scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly watching some mindless reality show. I was lost in the world of influencers and their perfect lives when I felt it. This prickly sensation on the back of my neck. You know that feeling when you're being watched? Yeah, that was it. I turned around quickly, half expecting to see a friend playing a prank on me, but of course it was just the mirror. I laughed it off, telling myself I was being dramatic. It's just a mirror, I reassured myself, rolling my eyes. But later that night, something woke me up. It was a faint metallic tapping sound, like someone gently rapped their knuckles against a door. It was so soft I almost didn't hear it, but it cut through the silence of my apartment like a knife. I lay still for a moment, straining my ears, trying to pinpoint the source. I figured it was my radiator acting up. Classic old apartment problems, right? But deep down, I knew something was off. I glanced at the clock on my bedside table. 2:13 a.m. The world outside was quiet, and the only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the clock, but that tapping persisted, echoing in the stillness. It felt like it was coming from the mirror itself, but that was ridiculous. Mirrors don't make sounds. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. With a deep breath, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, the cold floor sending a shiver up my spine. I approached the mirror, its surface glistening under the dim glow of my bedside lamp. I peered into it, half expecting to see something lurking behind me. But all I saw was my reflection, looking slightly disheveled and bewildered. "Okay, just breathe," I muttered to myself, forcing a chuckle. "It's just a mirror. You're being ridiculous." But as I turned to head back to bed, I felt that prickly sensation again, stronger this time. It was as if the mirror was calling to me, urging me to take a closer look. I hesitated, my heart racing. What was it about this mirror that felt so unsettling? I shook my head, dismissing the thoughts as I crawled back under the covers. But sleep didn't come easily. I kept tossing and turning, my mind racing with the possibilities. Was it just my imagination? Or was there something more to this mirror? I couldn't shake the feeling that it held secrets, whispers of the past trapped within its glassy depths. As I finally drifted off to sleep, the tapping sound faded into the background, but the unease lingered, curling around me like a thick fog. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a series of events that would unravel the very fabric of my reality. The next morning, I was getting ready for the day, standing in front of the mirror while brushing my teeth. The minty toothpaste foam bubbled in my mouth, and I was half focused on my phone, scrolling through notifications. That's when I noticed it. My reflection. It blinked, but it wasn't in sync with me. It was just a second too late. I froze the toothbrush halfway to my mouth, staring at my own eyes staring back at me. No way, I thought, trying to rationalize what I had just seen. I blinked again, slower this time, willing my reflection to mirror my movements perfectly. And there it was, a slight delay. I could hardly believe it. It was like my reflection was a beat behind, as if it was caught in a time warp, suspended in some bizarre parallel universe. Panic began to bubble in my chest. I backed away from the mirror, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. Maybe I imagined it, I told myself, shaking my head as if that would clear the fog of confusion. But the image in the mirror remained, staring back at me with an unsettling calmness. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. It stayed with me all day, gnawing at the edges of my mind, like a pesky itch I couldn't scratch. I tried to distract myself, throwing myself into work and binge-watching shows, but every time I caught a glimpse of my reflection, whether it was in a window, a store mirror, or even the shiny surface of my phone, I felt that lingering unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the mirror was hiding secrets from me. And then, my reflection moved. It tilted its head unnaturally, like it was studying me, its expression shifting to something almost curious. A chill ran down my spine as I felt the weight of its gaze, a sense of being scrutinized in a way that was both fascinating and horrifying. I screamed, the sound tearing through the silence of my apartment, and scrambled to turn on the lights, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the switch. When the harsh light flooded the room, I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep and disbelief. I looked back at the mirror, my heart racing, but it was back to normal. My reflection stared back at me, perfectly synchronized, as if nothing had happened. I could hardly breathe, the air thick with tension, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it had been real. I stood there, breathless and wide-eyed, staring at my reflection as if it might give me some answers. Was I losing my mind? Had the mirror somehow warped my perception of reality? I shook my head, trying to dispel the thoughts swirling in my mind. It's just a trick of the light, I whispered to myself, but deep down, I knew I was lying. I climbed back into bed, pulling the covers tightly around me, but sleep eluded me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in my head. The way my reflection had moved, the eerie glow, it felt like something out of a horror movie. I couldn't shake the feeling that the mirror was more than just a decorative piece. It was a gateway to something I didn't understand, something that was watching me, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. With sleep, I made a silent promise to myself. I would figure this out. I had to, because whatever was happening with that mirror, I could feel it in my bones. It was only just beginning. The next night, the mirror didn't just move. It showed me something. At midnight, I woke up to that same glow. This time, the mirror's surface rippled like water. Suddenly, it wasn't reflecting my room anymore. It was showing a dark alley. There was a hooded figure standing in the shadows, and then out of nowhere, they lunged at someone, a man. It was so violent, blood splattered, and the sound, it was like wet meat being hit. Then, just as quickly as it started, the mirror went still. My reflection stared back at me as if nothing had happened. I sat there, shaking, telling myself it was just a nightmare. But deep down, I knew better. The next morning, I was scrolling through my phone trying to forget about the night before. And then I saw it. A news article about a man found dead in an alley. Same alley, same details. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. This wasn't just a coincidence. The mirror. It showed me something real. But how and why? I wanted to convince myself it was impossible, but part of me was already starting to believe. The visions didn't stop. Every night at midnight, the mirror showed me another murder, each one more horrifying than the last. It was as if the mirror had become a twisted oracle, revealing dark secrets that I was never meant to witness. I lay awake in bed, heart pounding, dreading the moment the clock struck 12. But I couldn't look away. The pull of the mirror was too strong, an insatiable curiosity mixed with a paralyzing fear. One night, as the clock's hands aligned to signal midnight, I braced myself for the onslaught of terror. The familiar shimmer enveloped the mirror, and the scene unfolded before me. This time, it showed a woman in a bright red coat, her vibrant color stark against the dull gray backdrop of my street. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking against the pavement, a rhythmic sound that echoed in the silence of the night. I recognized her immediately. She lived in my building, just 2 floors up from me. The vision was chilling. I watched as she strolled casually, seemingly unaware of the danger lurking just out of sight. The streetlights flickered ominously, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist like dark fingers reaching for her. My breath caught in my throat as the scene escalated. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure lunged at her. In an instant, she was dragged into the darkness, her screams muffled and swallowed by the night. My heart raced, pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. I had to warn her, but how do you tell someone, "Hey, my cursed mirror says you're gonna die"? The thought made me cringe. I could already picture her reaction, the disbelief in her eyes, the way she would dismiss me as a paranoid neighbor. Still, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I had to try. With trembling hands, I threw on a sweatshirt and rushed out of my apartment, my heart racing as I hurried up the stairs. I knocked on her door, my knuckles rapping against the wood like a frantic drumbeat. "Please, please be home," I whispered to myself. I could hear the muffled sounds of television coming from inside, but there was no answer. I knocked again, more urgently this time, my voice shaking as I called out, "It's me, it's your neighbor. Please open up." After what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open and there she stood, her hair tousled, eyes bleary with sleep, and a frown etched across her face. "What is it?" she asked, irritation lacing her tone. I stumbled over my words, trying to explain, but the panic clawing at my throat made it hard to speak. I saw something in the mirror. I think you're in danger. You need to be careful." She raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over her face. "A mirror? What are you talking about? Are you okay?" I could see the doubt in her eyes, the way she looked at me like I was crazy. "Please, just listen to me. I saw you. Someone is coming for you." But she shook her head, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. "I'm fine. I think you need to get some sleep." She started to close the door, and I felt a wave of desperation wash over me. "No, please, just don't go out tonight." But it was too late. The door clicked shut, leaving me standing in the dim hallway, my heart racing with fear and frustration. I felt utterly powerless, like I was screaming into a void. I backed away, the echo of my own words ringing in my ears. The next morning, I awoke to a heavy silence. The sunlight filtered through my curtains, casting a warm glow across my room, but the warmth didn't reach my heart. I felt a gnawing dread as I glanced at the clock. It was late. Too late. I had lost track of time, and the pit in my stomach deepened as I realized I hadn't seen her in the hallway or heard her door open. I rushed out of my apartment, heart pounding with each step. I knocked on her door again, desperation clawing at me. "Please, let her be home," I thought, but there was no answer. I knocked again, louder this time, panic rising within me. "It's me. Are you in there?" Still nothing. A sinking feeling settled in my chest as I turned to the staircase, my mind racing. I hesitated for a moment, then hurried down to the lobby. Maybe she was just running late, I told myself, but as I reached the ground floor, my heart dropped. The landlord was standing behind the front desk, a grim expression on his face. I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that the mirror had instilled in me. I needed answers, and I knew there was only one person who could provide them: the vendor. I dug up the receipt and found the shop's name: the Enchanted Mirror Gallery. It was located in a quaint hidden corner of the city, a place I had never been to before. As I stepped into the shop, I was greeted by a cacophony of colors and shapes. Mirrors of all sizes, shapes, and styles adorned the walls, each one casting a kaleidoscope of reflections that danced around the room. I approached the counter where an elderly man sat, meticulously cleaning a small, ornate mirror. "Excuse me," I began, my voice hesitant. "I recently bought a mirror from you and I have some questions about it." The man looked up, his eyes narrowing as he studied my face. "You're the one who bought the antique mirror, aren't you?" he asked, a note of caution in his voice. I nodded and he sighed, setting the mirror down. "I must warn you, that mirror has a history. It's not just any mirror. It has powers." "Powers?" I echoed, my heart skipping a beat. He nodded. "Yes, it shows the truth, but sometimes the truth can be a terrible burden. It's not meant for everyone. I tried to warn you when you bought it, but you seemed so set on taking it home." "What kind of truth?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The kind that can change your life," he replied cryptically. "But be careful, the mirror doesn't just show the truth, it can also influence it. Be sure of what you want to see and what you want to change, because once the mirror is involved, there's no turning back." Armed with the knowledge the vendor had given me, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't just sit around and wait for the mirror to show me more horrifying visions. I needed to stop it, to break the curse. I spent days researching, scouring through ancient texts and dusty tomes, looking for a way to neutralize the mirror's powers. And finally, I found it. A ritual. A way to cleanse the mirror of its dark influence. The ritual required several rare ingredients, including a handful of moonstone dust, a vial of dragon's blood, and the feather of a raven. I managed to track down the items, each one more expensive and elusive than the last. As midnight approached, I prepared the ritual, my hands trembling with a mix of fear and determination. I arranged the ingredients in a circle around the mirror, their glow casting eerie shadows across the room. I lit the candles, their flickering flames casting a warm, comforting light. I recited the incantation, my voice wavering as I spoke the ancient words. I could feel the energy in the room shift, the air growing thick with a strange, otherworldly power. The mirror began to shimmer, its surface rippling like water. And then it happened. The visions began to fade, the horrifying images dissolving into nothingness. The mirror was losing its grip on me, the curse slowly lifting. But just as I thought the ordeal was over, a new vision appeared. This one was different, though. It wasn't a murder or a dark secret. It was a scene from my past, a moment I had long forgotten. I saw myself as a child, playing with a small mirror, a mirror that looked just like the one I had bought. I watched as I dropped it, the glass shattering into 1,000 pieces. I remembered that day, the fear I had felt as I cut my hand on the broken glass, the way my parents had scolded me for being careless. And then it hit me. The mirror wasn't cursed. It was a reflection of me, a manifestation of my fears and anxieties. The visions, the murders, the darkness, it was all a projection of my mind.